Mercedes appears to be launching a new low-downforce rear wing at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the second calendar race of the 2024 Formula One season. With the Bahrain season opening behind them, Mercedes will concentrate on round 2 at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, where they hope to have a more favourable track experience. Will Mercedes' latest enhancements put them in better positions this weekend? Let us find out. The high-speed twisting Jeddah Corniche circuit is a very different test from the Bahrain International Circuit, with its mix of high-speed and tight, technical sections, which appears to have been reflected in the rear wing that Mercedes will install on the W15 in Saudi Arabia. Mercedes had an underwhelming start to the F1 2024 season, according to team president Toto Wolff, as power unit cooling issues affected their Bahrain race, causing George Russell and Lewis Hamilton to lose 0.4 of a lap. Wolff said that the performance loss was closer to 0.6 per lap, and he set a goal for Mercedes to have a more consistent racing weekend in Saudi Arabia, allowing them to fully use the W15. Our race in Bahrain was best described as underwhelming, Wolff said. We were hopeful of a stronger showing after our performance in practice and qualifying. Both drivers were pleased with the balance earlier in the weekend and the more stable platform provided by the W15. Unfortunately, on Saturday evening, our cooling performance didn't match our predictions. That forced us into management mode early on, which had the knock-on impact of reducing tyre temperatures below optimum. That cost us the opportunity to show something closer to our true potential. It was a frustrating way to start the season, but one we will learn from. We've got an opportunity to take a step forward immediately. Jeddah is a street track with a lot of high-speed content. It will be good to continue our learning with the new car on a very different circuit to Bahrain. We will be aiming for a more consistent weekend and to understand our true performance relative to the rest of the grid. According to Mercedes Formula One Team Technical Director James Allison, the W15's overheating issues during the Bahrain Grand Prix remain an unanswered mystery. Both George Russell and Lewis Hamilton noticed that their power units were overheating, and from the start of the race, they were advised to modify engine settings and drive to keep temperatures under control. They eventually finished in 5th and 7th position. Teams modify their cooling capacity based on expected race day ambient temperatures, and Allison acknowledges that Mercedes is still trying to figure out what went wrong at Bahrain. Well, that was actually the biggest unanswered mystery from the weekend, he said. We were substantially hotter in the race than we expected to be. It's always something of a gamble choosing your cooling level for a given race weekend, because you're having to take a bet on free practice, running what the weather is going to be like on a Sunday. And normally you're also making a few corrections for different power levels and other things that can vary between the race and when you're doing your practices. This particular weekend was one of the weekends where we had to make the fewest guesses possible, since we'd already run this cooling level loads of times in winter testing, and we'd already run these power levels in winter testing as well as free practice. Lewis Hamilton struggled on the final lap of the Bahrain Grand Prix, finishing 9th. Throughout the race, Hamilton radioed, "My seat is broken." There was little the team could do at the time, with race engineer Pete Bonington just responding, "Okay, copy." Hamilton later told media, "Honestly, I think I was braking into turn 1, and then the seat just shifted, and my left butt cheek fell basically. I think it just cracked, just snapped, something snapped, so then it was moving around for a while. Like my butt was in the air, on one side it was up in the air." He pushed through the difficulties to finish 9th in his W15, 50 seconds behind race winner Max Verstappen and 4 behind teammate Russell. However, Andrew Chauvelin said Hamilton's seat was fine. Now, the seats are obviously designed to be able to be lifted out, because in the event of an accident, the driver comes out in his seat. And ultimately, the thing that holds the seat in the car is the driver who's strapped into his seatbelts. The only thing we can think is that if Lewis was ever so slightly loose, he moved a bit, and maybe the seat came up, had a little bit of motion and dropped down again, because looking at it afterwards, there's no evidence that anything's broken, that it was in the wrong position, but fundamentally that whilst it might be a bit uncomfortable for the driver, if they're not really rigidly located in the car, fundamentally a failure of the seat doesn't mean that the driver can come loose out. So they're always safe. But as I said, it looks like this was something very subtle, that maybe there was a bit of motion and then it settled down and was fine for the rest of the race. This occurred last weekend, although the crew had worked hard over the preceding 2 days to grasp the problem. The high-speed location needs a distinct aerodynamic design from the last round in Bahrain, with lower downforce and drag being significant goals. In most cases, the overall DNA of the wing's design is consistent with what the team used in Bahrain, with camber, chord, and angle of attack reductions proving to be sufficient alterations to balance each team's needs. Mercedes, on the other hand, appears to have adopted a more aggressive approach to rear wing design, dramatically raising and broadening the flatter center portion of the mainplane, resulting in a sharper transition into the end plate. As a result, the top flap's transition from the flat leading edge to the DRS pivot and bracketry is more abrupt, altering the tip section's shape. Notably, a large semicircular notch has been removed from the center part of the upper flap's trailing edge as the team seeks superior flow management here, thanks to the overall reduction in camber, chord, and angle of attack, while also accounting for the DRS pod's impact. While it is new for Mercedes under current regulations, it is not a new feature in Formula One, since Red Bull has continued to use a V-shaped notch with this new generation of cars, which became popular in the years preceding the legislative change. After the first day of practice in Jeddah, Hamilton said he is lacking confidence in the rear end of the W15, which explains his Thursday struggles. "Difficult day, just lacking the confidence in the rear of the car," Hamilton admitted. "The setup, we did some work session to session, changed the car quite a bit, but underlying issue with the rear end that I was struggling with, so I had a couple of really big moments out there. In these high-speed areas, you need to have full faith in the rear of the car, and I just don't have that yet." George is a lot happier with his car. "We kind of went in different directions today. We were trying different things to try and find the right solution for the car. But all I want is something with a stable rear and then I'll be happy. So that's what I'm working on." Russell acknowledged that he and Hamilton went in different paths with their setups, but the perfect window for the W15 has yet to be identified. And while he was satisfied with the low fuel performance, finishing P2 in FP2 and 2/10 behind Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso, the W15's long-run pace remained unknown. "Little bit of a scrappy session," he said. "I don't think we probably had the car in the perfect window. I think the lap times looked good in the low fuel. High fuel pace, not too sure where we're at really. But it's so close again. The Astons have been a bit of a surprise, but great to see they're up there. We've got work to do overnight and see what we can achieve tomorrow. We did a lot of testing today. In FP1, Lewis started with one setup. I started drastically different. And then in FP2, we did a complete opposites. We swapped setups to see what works, trying to learn more about the car, trying to get feedback from us both. And it's still early days. It's only the second race of the season. It's a new car. We've only been at one circuit beforehand, and we need to keep on learning. As I said, let's see what we can do tonight. Everybody back home is going to be working hard on the simulator and try and eke out a bit more performance. What are your thoughts? Will Mercedes have better performance in the second round of the season? Please let us know in the comments section below.